Hey everybody, it's Naya. Welcome back to EpidemicSound. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read this month, or actually more specifically, my favorite books that I read in October. I feel like I just posted my October TBR video. I'm 99% sure the last video up on my channel is my October TBR. I read quite a few books this month, but only a few are from my TBR. I ended up getting... Listen, I watched like one Hallmark movie and then I just ended up falling into kind of like a romantic mood. Deviated from my TBR. I did end up reading 2 physical books, but majority of the books I read / listened to were on audio. It's a crazy work month for me, so I kind of had to just fit in reading where I could, and because of that I ended up listening to a lot of audiobooks. Let me know if anybody else does that, because I find that when things are like crazy and I just feel like I don't have time to read, audiobooks are like the best way to go. I will say though that all in all it was a fantastic reading month. I just definitely didn't stick to the sort of like witchy, spooky Halloween TBR that I set for myself. It's fine. It's okay. So today I'm so excited. Today's video is so kindly sponsored by my friends over at Cereal Box, and that is Cereal Box with an S, not a C. It is not a food item, unfortunately. You cannot eat Cereal Box, but you can devour stories via audio and ebook. What is Cereal Box, you guys? So one of the stories I listened to this month was actually on this new platform called Cereal Box. Now there's a website and there's also an iOS and Android app. So Cereal Box is a new platform that publishes immersive fiction in audiobook and ebook formats sold together for one low price. If you're like me and you go back and forth between ebooks and audiobooks, you're going to love this. Cereal Box develops their own stories from a team of producers in-house, and then they hire a best-selling / award-winning writer to bring them to life. Story genres they have include sci-fi, fantasy, mystery, thriller, historical, horror. Their catalog has over 150 titles accessible again via their website or their app. The coolest thing about Cereal Box is the format of their story. So you can toggle between an audiobook and ebook format. So wherever you were in the audiobook, you can then just jump to that spot in the ebook and physically read it. It's so cool. Cereal Box stories feature shorter chapters, aka episodes. Most episodes are between like 20 to 60 minutes long. Stories are meant to capture your attention and keep you there for manageable periods of time, so you can enjoy a story without feeling kind of overwhelmed with the time commitment. The best part is that you can listen to the first episode of any serial, so any of the stories on their page for free. So the first episode's always free. What's even cooler is the audiobook is not your standard like audiobook with just like a narrator. Cereal Box produces a full-scale audio experience with sound effects and background noises to make the story just super immersive and as realistic as possible. The story that I listened to on Cereal Box, which only the first episode is out right now, but the second episode comes out on October 28th, so I am just like patiently waiting for like the episode release notification. The Haunting of a Beatrix Green. This was written by Rachel Hawkins as well as Ash Parsons and Vicky Schechter, and again there's a whole production team behind like the audiobook of it. So this is a historical horror story, and if you're a fan of Crimson Peak or Sherlock Holmes, this book takes place in Victorian England, and in the story we're following our main character. She is a very independent woman, especially like during this time. She, you know, women didn't have many job opportunities, so she is a spiritual medium, meaning that she connects people with their loved ones that have passed away. So, you know, she sits at a table and she conducts a seance, communes with the dead. She has to outsmart one of the most important clients of her career, who is this doctor that is determined to prove that she's a fraud, that everything she does is fake, that she's not actually a medium. So their little game of wits ends up having fatal consequences when our main character actually ends up summoning a vengeful spirit, and she's forced to work with this doctor now to try and banish it. At the beginning of the story, they do not like each other, and so they kind of have to put their differences aside and work together. At the same time, they have a growing passion because love finds a way. I have only listened to the very first episode, which again, it's out right now and it's so good. And you guys, the audiobook, like, like to give you an example, there's like someone creeping up the stairs. You actually hear the footsteps of someone like creeping up the stairs. It almost feels like you're watching a movie, but like in audiobook form. Forward to listening to the rest of the episodes, but Cereal Box was so kind to give me a code so you can get any Cereal Box story for 50% off. There'll also be this code and a link in the description so you can check it out. The next story I read this month was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now, this was the oldest book, or one of the oldest books on my TBR list, and I'm so happy that I finally got to it this month. Now, when you guys comment and compare books to The Night Circus, I'll know what you're talking about. Quick summary of this book, because it came out in 2011 and I feel like everyone read it except for me, except now I've read it. Like the title suggests, in this book we are following this, well, we're following a lot of characters actually, which was really surprising for me. It is a very whimsical, magical circus that isn't like any other sort of performance group that anyone has ever really seen before. It almost feels like real magic. About the Night Circus though is no one knows when or where it's gonna show up and appear, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience if you do end up being lucky enough to be one of those towns that the Night Circus stops in. In this story, we're following two magicians, a boy and a girl, and we're following them over, oh gosh, how many years passes in this book? A lot, I think like 80 years passes in this book. They're both magicians and we're following them from when they're kids all the way into adulthood, but once they reach adulthood, time kind of slows down for them because they have magic, which is another thing that was really surprising for me. So it spans more than like a lifetime, I would say, or at least these characters, it spans their entire life span. Since both of the magicians were children, they were trained to compete against each other. They knew they were going to be competing in a competition. They knew there was just one other person, but they didn't know about each other. They didn't know what the competition was about, what the rules were. All they knew was that they had to practice and study and train and perfect their magic for this competition that would pretty much span their entire life once they hit adulthood. The stage for the competition ends up becoming the Night Circus, and the reason why the Night Circus is so magical is because of these two magicians that both create different tents and put on different shows at the circus. But again, that's like a big part of the story, is that neither of these characters know why they're competing against each other, but essentially they just keep trying to kind of like one-up each other at the Night Circus by creating an even greater performance, an even greater tent, an even greater illusion. So over the years, it's just like they're constantly just trying to create the best performance, and neither of them know when there's going to be an ending to this competition or even like the point of it. And that's like the biggest, okay, like that's the biggest thing. As the reader, we don't even know why they're competing against each other. I listened to this story partially in audiobook form and partially like I read it. I just kind of went back and forth, and the book for me was a little slow in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie, it took me about 50 pages, actually, okay, maybe more like 100 pages to really get into it. But once I was in. Only one of them is supposed to survive the competition. They don't know that. We as the reader do know that. So that's kind of like what was the driving force for me as to like wanting to finish the book, because the entire story, it's like, it gets slow at some points, but there's that promise of one of them is supposed to die in the end, and just wanting to know again the point of this competition, because as the reader, we don't know why they're competing. And it was so frustrating at some points. I'm like, why are they doing this? So like this entire book, you feel it like building, like the story is building and it's getting somewhere. Once I got to the end, one of those endings that leaves you thinking about the book. Like up to a week after I finished it, I was still thinking about these characters. Overall, the reason why I'm putting it on this favorites list is because the story was so beautiful, you guys. Like more than anything, it's also a love story, I would say. They do start to fall in love once they do like meet each other. Throughout the story, you're not given much information, but you're kind of just given this promise of, you know, they're falling in love, you know one of them has to die, you know that there's a point to this, or at least there has to be a point, or at least I hoped there was a point. And then once you get to the end, like you finally figure out everything and like all those puzzle pieces are put together. I was kind of mad at first how it ended, but the more I thought about it, the more I started to accept the ending. Like I was like, you know what, this was actually genius how she ended this. Okay, so the next story, you guys, out of everything I listened to and read this month, this is the one story I was literally like on the edge of my seat the entire time I was listening to it. The next story I listened to was Ties That Tether by Jane Igaro. Now, I saw this cover going around all over Instagram. This has to be one of the most beautiful book covers I have ever seen. Like, God bless those cover artists that designed this because it's gorgeous. Ties That Tether. This is a, I would definitely say, adult romance book. And in this book, we are following our main character. Now, her and her whole family immigrated from Nigeria to Canada. I believe she left Nigeria when she was 10 or 12 years old. So she spent like a good portion of her childhood growing up there. So our main character ends up losing her father when she's really young, and before her father passes away, he makes her promise that when she grows up, she'll marry a Nigerian man. As anyone who's immigrated might know, you know, she moved to a completely different country, and so she was forced to adapt to this new culture, this new environment. And so as she has grown older, and it's become harder and harder for her to keep that promise. There are a lot of fine men out here. Our main character, specifically her mother, has made it her mission to find the perfect suitor for her, and so she's constantly setting her up on dates. One of these dates does not end up going as planned, and that same night she ends up meeting a white man and kind of having a one-night stand with him. Fast forward several days, her first day back at work, who does she see walk through that door? Finds out that the person she had a one-night stand with is actually her new co-worker. So now she has to see him every day. That is kind of like the premise to the story. I will say this, you guys, I was shook. I feel like that's the premise of it, but something bigger ends up happening, and these two characters, you know, slowly, I feel like the title is so perfect. It's called Ties That Tether, and that's exactly what happens to these two characters, is that especially our main female character, she really tries to keep her distance from this guy. His name is Raphael, and she, you know, she's starting to catch feelings for him, even though she's trying to convince herself that, you know, she doesn't like him. More than anything though, I feel like our main character is struggling with this fear that her mother put in her head that if she dates someone outside of her culture, then she'll end up losing her culture and losing parts of herself. She just has all this fear, and you can see her really struggling with that. And I found a lot of it like really relatable, and I just think, oh, it was such a good story. Our main character, like, this is one of the few romance books where I love both the male and female main character. I feel like some authors just purposely make like one of the two love interests unlikable, but both of these characters were very likable, and I was just rooting for them and shipping them from like the jump. So continuing on with the romance, okay, because you guys know once I was like one romance book in, like, I was in. The next book I listened to, which was also a 10 out of 10 romance. This was actually, I would say, like rom-com. This author, again, is another author that like, she's like my #1 go-to for romance now, and I think she only has these 2 books out, but if she does have books coming out in the future, I will be purchasing them. Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, and this is the sequel to Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which was one of my favorite like romance comics. I read it just like a month or 2 ago, and I actually have a reading vlog if you guys want to check it out. You know when you laugh so hard you start crying? Like that is this whole series, and I highly recommend you listen to it in audiobook form because it's just so much funnier listening to like all the jokes narrated. Take a Hint, Danny Brown. So in this book we are following the sister of Chloe, who's the main character we're following in the first book. Now, you don't have to have read the first book to read the second. I do recommend reading Get a Life, Chloe Brown first though, because Chloe and the main male character in that book do appear. They appear a few times, or I think like 1 or 2 times in this book. I recommend listening to that first, and then like, yeah, when they appear, you'll just be really excited like I was. I was like, oh my god, there's Chloe. Following the sister from that book, and her name is Danny. She teaches at a university. She is the total opposite, I would say, of Chloe, who's her sister. She's very like no nonsense, very analytical, and she always like wears like crystals on her neck, and she has very short like hair that's always dyed in different colors. When it comes to relationships, she has a policy of she does not do like long-term relationships. She strictly only does like one-night stands. She's very secure, I would say, like in in like what she wants and like who she is as a person, and she's just like the best character to read from. She's very blunt and very honest, and I would say a little bit vulgar, but like in the best way. The main male character, he is a security guard at the university that she works at. So he's the one that you have to like show up your like ID every time you come in, and he'll like let you pass. He's an ex-rugby player. So in the beginning of the story, our main character ends up getting trapped in an elevator, and the main male character has to rescue her. All the students end up videotaping what happens, and that video of him rescuing her kind of goes viral. Because of this viral video, he ends up getting a lot of attention, and he has like a side non-profit organization thing going on. So this whole viral video ends up bringing a lot of publicity, like good publicity, to his little side business thing. They end up deciding to continue to like perpetuate this little viral video and pretend to actually be dating each other. The main character, like, she's very clear. She's like, I don't want a relationship. I will 100% be in a fake relationship and like do the whole like no strings attached thing. As their fake relationship progresses, they end up, or one or both of them end up catching feelings for each other, and yeah, they kind of have to deal with those feelings. This book was fantastic. Talia Hibbert is the queen of dialogue. Our main male character, he's very like gruff and kind of like serious all the time. You know, he's a security guard, so Danny like pokes fun at him a lot. She's the total opposite. Like, she'll just say stuff that'll make him like burst out, just like spit his cough. Something I love about Talia Hibbert is that her books don't shy away from mental health. So mental health is something that's really heavily discussed in this book, especially with our main male character. The last book I read this month, lo and behold, it is another contemporary book, Breathless by Jennifer Niven. Jennifer Niven wrote All the Bright Places. She is one of my favorite people. She's amazing. Her newest book that just came out is Breathless, and it's actually based off a true story from her life. In this book, Breathless, we're following our main character, and it is her senior year of high school. Now, her family has always just been her mom, and her dad, so she's an only child. She always had just a very stable, secure family life. 2 weeks before she graduates and is actually supposed to go on this like road trip with her best friend, she has all these summer plans. She finds out that her parents are separating, and it's quite devastating to her because, again, she grew up with a very loving, safe, secure, you know, family, just the three of them. Not only that, but her mother then tells her that for the summer, her and her mother are going to be going to this island off of Georgia. Now she has to spend her summer by herself with her mom on this like remote island, and she has to cancel her plans with her friends. Basically, she feels like her life is falling apart. Once she gets to this island, she ends up meeting this boy, and she, like, I want to say it's kind of hate to love, but like not, there wasn't a very long like hating period. She ends up just having this like crazy summer that she didn't expect. I will say though, in the beginning of the story, I wasn't a huge fan of the main character. She was kind of mean, which I understand. Again, like, you know, she's going through something pretty traumatic, you know, for her. Once she finds all of this out, her mindset becomes very negative, and once she gets to the island actually for the first time and she meets the main male character of the story, she's like super mean to him at first, even though he's like really nice. Even, I think there's even a line where she's like, oh, there's like nothing to do on this island, and he just totally calls her out. He goes, well, you know, if you changed your attitude, you might like find out that it's a pretty fun place. He really kind of helps her change her mindset because he himself went through some pretty traumatic things with his family. Like, there's definitely character growth in this book. She becomes a lot more open, and a lot of it has to do with the main male character. He really kind of changes her perspective, and he's very much like an island guy. At first they don't get along too well, but slowly they start to fall in love and it ends up being just like such a beautiful, like, just like summer romance story. And Jennifer Niven's writing is so beautiful. If you guys read All the Right Places, it's that same style. Those were my favorite books that I read in October. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys read. Did you stick to your TBR? Because I can't be the only one. Also, thank you again to Cereal Box for sponsoring this video. Again, there'll be a link down below with a discount code. Until next time, keep reading, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!